Hey guys, what's up? It's Ella. Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to discuss 8 of my favorite things about independent theme parks. These are the parks that aren't backed by a huge corporation and are usually smaller in size, but still provide a great experience nonetheless. Before I get started, I do want to note that I am not trying to bash corporate-owned parks, but rather highlight some of the characteristics that I admire about these independent parks. As always, these are my personal opinions, and nothing I state in this video is on behalf of any theme park or organization. Anyways, without further ado, let's get into it. Number 1. Shorter lines. One of my favorite things about independent theme parks is that, in my experience, they usually have fewer crowds than you'll find at larger parks. Less people results in shorter lines, and in turn, guests are able to ride more rides throughout the day. Of course, there's days when these parks do get busier, especially on weekends or holidays, but in general, you won't end up waiting hours for a ride like you might at a larger theme park. Because these parks also tend to have fewer rides due to their smaller size, you don't need to worry that you won't be able to ride everything in one day. Guests can really take their time and enjoy their day at a park without worrying about crowds limiting how much they'll be able to ride. Number 2. No skip the line passes. Because independent parks have shorter lines, there's really not a need for a skip the line system. Skip the line systems typically work where guests can pay extra money for shorter wait times, but with shorter lines overall at smaller parks, guests don't have to shell out extra money for a good experience. Personally, I'm not a fan of any skip-the-line systems, mostly because I'm really cheap and I like to save my money, but they can be annoying when you're waiting in a standby line. I also dislike them because they imply that people with more money are able to have a better experience, and to me it just doesn't seem fair to lower-income guests who are not able to afford these skip-the-line passes. Now, some independent parks do have a skip-the-line system, but they are far less common than they are in larger parks. Number 3. Goofy mascots. Another thing that I adore about independent theme parks are the goofy mascots that they have. Unlike chain parks with intellectual property rights, independent parks usually have their own mascot, and I love how these uniquely imagined characters bring a sense of story and originality to these parks. My personal favorite is probably IB Crow from Indiana Beach. If you can't tell by all the Indiana Beach footage in this video, I absolutely adore this park, and it's the park that I grew up going to most often, so of course I have to proclaim my love for IB Crow. Other than the beloved Crow, other independent theme parks have their own share of goofy mascots such as Bernie Bernard from Adventureland and Wally from Waldemere. I also have to give a shout out to Lost Island opening in Iowa this year. I haven't been there as of the time this video is being made, but the owners of Lost Island created an entirely new original world with unique characters and lands that I think is so unique and the epitome of how independent parks can create a completely original story outside of anything else that's already existing. Number 4, more charm. There's something about independent parks where they just have a different atmosphere to them. It's that same kind of charm that you'll find in a small town or a family restaurant. Something about it just seems more personal, and knowing that you're supporting a family's livelihood makes me feel more willing to spend a few extra dollars at the park. In my opinion, the general ambiance of a smaller theme park is more homey and friendly, and just has an overall more charismatic vibe. Number 5, not having to answer to corporate. One of the advantages of not being owned by a corporation is that park owners don't have to adhere to certain predetermined parameters set by the corporation. So owners of small parks have more control over how they want to market the park, how they use their budget, what investments to get, among other things. Now, at times this can be a disadvantage because they might not have the resources that come along with being part of a larger corporation, but on the flip side, independently owned parks have a lot more freedom to make that park exactly how they want it. When the park doesn't have to fit into the certain mold set by a chain, the park ends up being more unique and provides a distinct experience that you really just can't experience anywhere else. Number 6, simple loose article policies. Maybe this is just the small parks that I've been to, but in my experience, independent theme parks are less likely to have strict or confusing loose article policies. Most have bins right on the platform where guests can store their loose articles, and they're not required to pay for a locker or anything like that. Having a confusing or tedious loose article policy can be a really big buzzkill, but luckily most independent parks don't seem to have this issue. Number 7, reasonable food prices and unique food options. One of my biggest pet peeves of corporate-owned theme parks is the ridiculous food prices, especially when the quality is just average or even worse. I find that independent theme parks tend to have more reasonable food prices, along with more unique food options outside of your typical burgers, hot dogs, and pizza. A lot of theme parks have been stepping up their food game lately, and I'm definitely happy that quality is improving, but even though the food is better tasting, I still shouldn't have to pay $15 for 3 chicken tenders. Luckily, independent parks tend to have lower prices with higher quality when it comes to food. And finally, number 8, overall cheaper prices. Along with food prices, independent parks just tend to be less expensive overall and don't nickel and dime guests as much. I'm talking about when parks force guests to pay for lockers instead of just having bins on the platform for loose articles, ridiculous parking fees, sometimes up to $30 just for parking, overpriced food and drinks, among many other things. And I get it, parks need to make money to thrive and survive, but I much prefer when parks have a higher admission price that includes the extra amenities versus a park that bombards you with unknown fees once you enter. A great example of this is Holiday World, which has a little bit of a higher admission price than some other independent parks, but this price includes the price of parking, soft drinks, lockers, and even sunscreen. That type of system makes me feel like I'm getting a lot for my money compared to the opposite system where I feel like I'm being pickpocketed. Not all large parks are guilty of this, but I found that independent parks are much less likely to fight for every possible dollar that they can grab. And that is going to conclude it for my favorite things about independent theme parks. But let me know in the comments below if there's anything that I missed or if you have a favorite thing that I didn't mention. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked what you saw today, drop a like and consider subscribing to my channel for more content like this. 90% of my viewers are not subscribed, so don't be one of them. Drop a sub. I post ranking videos like this as well as vlogs and other fun theme park and travel content. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end, and I hope to see you again. Adios!